Hi, welcome to In the Arena, where politics and policy come alive. I'm your host, Mindy McAlindon, and we're diving deep into the issues, the power plays, and the strategies that shape our world. So whether you're a political junkie or just curious about how things work, this is the place to be. So get ready to jump in the arena. Joining me today in the arena is Charlie Collins. He's the Deputy Director and Commissioner of Revenue at the Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration, what we call DFA. Charlie has an extensive career in both the private and public sectors. He has served as a state legislator, worked for Fortune 500 companies, and now is overseeing key financial and administrative functions for the state. We're going to explore his journey into politics and his work at DFA, and we're going to discuss the future of AI and what it could mean for Arkansas in the years ahead. So let's go ahead and join us. Charlie, welcome to In the Arena.
Thank you very much, Representative. It's good to be here.
It's good to see you. I have some great questions for you, and I always like to start with background. I think it's just the way my mind works. I like to start at the beginning and move forward, but you went to the Naval Academy. So what inspired you to go to the Naval Academy and pursue that career?
Well, I wish I could say that I was kind of impelled from youth or something along those lines, but the reality was I just always tried to say, what does the world tell me I should do, and focus on that. So I did my best in school. I took one of those standardized tests when I was a sophomore. Some of the people from the service academy saw those results and came to my school. Our counselor grabbed me and a couple other kids and had us sit down and learn about the academies. That was the first I'd ever heard. And when they started talking about being able to go to school and essentially exchanging military service for a college degree at a great institution and serve the country all at the same time, seemed like a wonderful opportunity. So that was really what led me to pick going to the Naval Academy.
That's wonderful. And you served in Naval Intelligence, is that right?
Yes. Again, another irony, what the Naval Academy is focused on is bringing in people into the warfighting capabilities. Think ship drivers, submariners, pilots, those types of roles. But for those of us that are not physically qualified, they have some other options like Supply Corps and Navy Intelligence. And I was very fortunate, even though my eyesight was beyond the medical limits at the academies because they had some of those other specialties. I was one of very few people that was able to choose intelligence coming out of the Naval Academy.
I cannot imagine just the experiences and the things that you saw and learned. Is there anything particular that you can share, a particularly memorable experience from that time?
So I served aboard an aircraft carrier, the USS America. So aircraft carriers, the United States Navy is really the only modern Navy that has that type of a weapon system. Think approximately 100 airplanes with different capabilities on a moving airport.
Wow.
And that was really the ship that I was on. And so, there's a lot of things happening when you're launching aircraft and loading bombs and the planes are landing and the wind is blowing and all of these other things. And there are 5,000 sailors on an aircraft carrier. And I was privileged to be the boss, we call them division officers, of the intelligence division. But through that experience, I just got to see the heart and soul of America. And it was just a really, really wonderful experience to lead those sailors and to learn about those sailors and to see what a great opportunity the Navy was for them and what great patriots they are for the country.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do thank you for your service and the time that you put in there. And I think you have a child or son maybe who also went to the academy. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have an older daughter, and then when she was 18 months old, we had triplets.
Wow.
And now my children are all grown. My older daughter works for the Department of the Air Force. She's in cybersecurity. She does a lot of computer programming for bombers at an air base and for the systems that they need. My triplet daughter is the person you're mentioning. She went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, and she drives oil tankers. She just took an oil tanker through the Panama Canal here about a month ago.
So cool.
moving oil from port to port along the coast of the United States. And then my two triplet sons were both in the Arkansas Army National Guard. One of them completed his contract. The other one re-upped and is in the air traffic control unit here in Little Rock.
That is great. What an amazing family of service. Thank you for all that y'all do.
Well, thank
So,
you.
moving on to your work life, I know you and I both worked for Procter and Gamble, and it's an amazing company, right? It is a top-notch marketing company, and Procter and Gamble loves to hire military officers. I can't even tell you the number that I worked with when I was there. So let's talk about a little bit about how your military background helped shape your leadership style and how that translated over to corporate.
So I think one of the reasons that Procter likes hiring from the military is because it broadens the hiring base. Obviously, colleges tend to graduate students, one or two times a year, and
Hmm.
that's a fairly consistent way of getting people. But you have junior military officers leaving the military kind of, at different times throughout the year. So if a company like Procter needs people kind of off cycle, they can fill those gaps with people from the military. So I think that's one of the reasons that pipeline was kind of created as an adjunct. The other thing
Hmm.
it does is it gets you entry level people, frankly, that have more experience.
Yeah.
When they come to join the company in some of those entry level roles. So when I was in the Navy on the ship, I got connected to one of the recruiting programs that Procter uses. Procter's not the only company that does that. And as I was learning about corporate America, now again, this is 30 plus years ago. In those days, there was no such thing as Google and Facebook and Nvidia or any of these companies that are so prevalent today. Back in those days, the premier companies to work for were the top tier CPG companies, Procter and Gamble being number one, Johnson and Johnson maybe number two. So the opportunity to go to perhaps the best business learning environment you could go to was really the primary draw for me to Procter and Gamble. I wanted to go from the greatest thing to the greatest thing.
And you worked in marketing. You're a brand manager with them,
Yes.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big deal at Procter and Gamble to be able to manage one of their flagship brands. Brands did you work on?
So when I got to Procter and Gamble was when they had just developed the technology in hair care to put shampoo and conditioning in one product. And so
Wow, that's
that was
great.
the Pert Plus brand. And then
Yes.
I worked on the Head and Shoulders brand. We
Okay.
did a relaunch of that business, which was my project as an assistant brand manager. It turned out to be the second highest payout project for Procter and Gamble in the beauty care division
Wow.
after the Pantene launch. And then I was promoted to be the brand manager over Noxzema and Bain de
Okay.
Soleil.
Okay.
Um, but while in Cincinnati, one of the things I really love my sales training experience, which is part of the training program at
Hmm.
Procter. And one of the things that really struck me, Representative, was that our customers really do not think about their businesses. So think retailers, grocery stores, and mass merchandisers, et cetera. They really don't think of their stores as a brand anywhere near the same way that Procter thinks about its product lines.
Mm.
And so I thought there was an opportunity to really add something to our selling story by being able to help our customers strategically think differently about how their brand goes to market. And oh, by the way, in the process, change the strategic value of Procter product lines to those customers. And I was talking with the salesperson that was running the Sam's Club business back in the mid 90s. He got really excited about some of these ideas. And so that's what brought me to Northwest Arkansas. Procter moved me there in 1996, and I had the opportunity to work on the Sam's Club and the Wal-Mart businesses, really bring some of those ideas to fruition. We quadrupled the sales goals during that period. So it
Wow.
was very fulfilling to be able to bring that kind of value. And while we were growing the Procter business, essential to that whole thing
Yeah.
was making sure that Sam's business was growing too. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And that it is amazing to me how you have gone from, you know, top of the line. You were at the Naval Academy. You were a naval officer. You went to Procter and Gamble, top of the line for marketing, and then Fortune 1, you went to Walmart. Like it is, you have really had an amazing career. And then somewhere you got this bright idea to run for state office. What happened there?
So I had one of the people that I'd worked with was a headhunter in Northwest Arkansas. So think personnel recruiting, and Northwest Arkansas was a burgeoning area, and he basically offered me the opportunity to be an equal partner if I would partner with him and create that headhunting firm and kind of expand it and take it to a different level together. So that's, call it a small business experience. And while I was doing that, they gave me a little bit more flexibility
Mm.
and the idea and the opportunity to try and make a difference on a broader scale, not just a business scale, was something I was able to do simultaneously. Back in 2010, seemed like a really good opportunity to kind of make that transition because my kids had kind of gone from being young and needing me home all the time
Mm-hmm.
to a place where I could be a little bit more flexible, spend time in both Northwest Arkansas and Central Arkansas. I was very fortunate, again, more dumb luck on my part, that in the suburban area of Fayetteville where I lived, President Obama had won in 2008. There was a lot of suburban mom regret over that vote, I believe. So in
Mm-hmm.
2010, I kind of sauntered up to the Republican window, and there wasn't anybody else in line since Republicans had never won in Fayetteville, and
Mm-hmm.
and so therefore I could go and get a chance to run pretty easily on the Republican side, and then was one of a handful of us that had kind of shocking victories because the Democratic um, prevalence in the legislature in those days was about the same as the Republican prevalence is today.
That is amazing. That really is amazing. And it was a tremendous transition at that point in time in Arkansas. So, congratulations on that. And you served for 8 years in the legislature?
Yeah, so I won in 10, 12,
Okay.
14, and then in 16, nobody ran against me. And what was interesting is I won in 2014 in the exact same district confines by 20 points.
Wow.
And then in 2018, I ran my best campaign ever and lost by 15 points.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I thought I was winning on charm and good looks,
Yeah.
but I learned suburban moms can be fickle.
Yes, yes. And I mean, yeah, politics is a very unsure game for sure. So tell me, during that time, because I know you passed a lot of laws during that time, you worked on a lot of different legislation. Is there some policy that you passed or maybe tried to pass that didn't pass that you are most proud of?
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of two things. The first one is kind of my mindset on it. Coming to Arkansas I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I'd gone to school out east. I worked for Procter Gamble in Cincinnati. So coming to Arkansas, I brought with it a lot of experience in other places. And when I got here, I was dumbfounded. I was stunned. I was flummoxed. I was flabbergasted at how egregious the income tax was.
Mm,
I grew up in Michigan, which is, kind of a blue state and certainly a union state, but the income tax, I don't think it was ever more than 6%. It's actually 4% today. And that's not unusual for a lot of states. So when I came here and it was almost double that amount, I just couldn't believe it because I thought in the South we didn't do that. And the reason that it's such a horrible tax is if you think about it in contrast with the cigarette tax. We'll all say it's a good idea to have cigarette taxes because that will mean less people will smoke. You tax something and less people will do it. Well, when you're taxing income, what you're saying is, I want less people to what? I want less people to work.
to work. Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So that was the reason it just felt like why Arkansas had such a difficult time getting people to move here, why we had such a difficult time getting people to invest in education and do a lot of the things that really help improve the quality of life. So the concept was, let's turn Arkansas into a good jobs magnet. And step one is to reduce that income tax rate while we maintain taking care of all the vital services. The second thing was at the time, there was a national issue with crazies who would run around and shoot and murder people in order to get on the front pages of the newspaper and the television cameras. And the way that this particular profile tended to operate, and a very intensive study was done by the Secret Service and the Federal Department of Education after Columbine, which was really one of the most famous
Mm-hmm.
circumstances and where they really started doing a lot of research, is that these types of people are impossible to identify in advance. They don't have criminal records. They don't behave in a crazy fashion. They don't really leave any signs. What happens is they're boiling up inside. They're boiling up inside. They're feeling more and more resentful. And then when they snap, they don't snap into a frenzy. They snap into a very methodical, plotting, planning approach with a single goal of getting famous. And so they want to create as much havoc to make as many people cry and gnash their teeth to get the television cameras. So the only thing that can really dissuade them or disrupt them is the unexpected, because they're such intricate planners. And the only way you can really create an unexpected situation that I could think of
Mm-hmm.
to leverage what we have today, the concealed carry holder, which is a very responsible base of gun owners, and allow them into some of these sensitive areas, which, because of their sensitivity, is what attracted the crazy killers in the first place. In this case, it was college campuses.
Okay.
And so when you ask about legislation that failed or didn't fail, I first introduced that campus carry legislation in 2011, got slapped down very convincingly in a House committee. In 2013, I compromised to the point where the bill passed, but all the colleges could opt out. That got a lot more public attention, especially in Northwest Arkansas. Some of those college boards are elected, so it became election issues for some people. In 2015, I got the legislation through the House, but by the time it was too late in the session and the Senate wasn't willing to take it up. And finally, in 2017, we have what I would call the most progressive and bill of its nature in Arkansas to help protect those kids on college campuses. So it's not a panacea. There's no such thing as a panacea, but hopefully that'll help be one of the things that we do in Arkansas that deters people from trying to kill our loved ones in sensitive areas.
Well, I appreciate you working so hard, and I love that you went through that progression of what it takes. Sometimes it is session after session of going back and refining an idea and enrolling those stakeholders in. Nothing's as simple as we think it is. As we sit at home and we look at the legislature and we say, "Why can't you just do this?" And it's never as easy as one hopes it would be to get stuff done. So, and you're right. I think a lot of those shootings took place in places where guns weren't allowed, and so people were just unarmed, and there's not a lot they could do. So it's a good protection to remember. So let's move on to your role at DFA. So this is exciting. You have been in role 18 months, maybe?
So when I lost in 2018, I came to work for the state government. So I got some experience in the DFA budget office.
Okay.
I spent 6 months with the transition, the transformation, working in the transformation and shared services arena. And then when the Commissioner of Revenue job opened up, I was fortunate enough to be tapped by a wonderful man, Larry Walther, who was the Secretary of DFA at the time, to take up this role. And that was in November of 19. Okay. So we're actually going on closer to, is it almost 6 years now? Five and a half?
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And that was just a few months before COVID hit. And so the reason that's so relevant is the best way to think about my role is to think about it as running the day-to-day operations for state government that meets the needs of your typical Arkansan. So I'm not talking about people in hospitals or people in prisons, those types of situations, but the everyday Arkansan who's got to get a driver's license, motor vehicle registration, pay their taxes, or do things like in a child support situation where maybe two people are not able to agree, and then there's a child, and how are we going to get the money from point A to point B? We have over 100,000 folks in that type of a situation that we work with. So there's 175 offices across the state. I've got 2,000 people that are working on meeting our Kansan needs across all of those different types of services. So we're literally talking to and touching and dealing with thousands of our Kansans every day, and that all kind of rolls up under me.
Yes.
And so the beauty of it is I've got an opportunity to be the face of state government for the people of Arkansas. And that's what I would call kind of my primary focus. Think customer service for Arkansas. And when we do that well, it helps all of us look good. Uh,
Yes.
McKinsey did a study in 2022, and it turns out that nationwide, the two biggest things that people base their conclusion, is my state government doing well, are what is it like to handle the tax services? What is it like to handle my motor vehicle services? Both of those
Yes.
things are in my shop. And when they feel good about that, then they feel good about their legislators. They feel good about their governor. They feel good about their bureaucrats. And so it's good for all of us.
Well, you do have a tough job because I think that is probably one of the biggest complaints I hear from people outside of health insurance, lapsing. It is got to be something to do with motor vehicle services. And so people will say, I stood in line too long, or, I went down there, I had to go 3 times. And I think I have seen over the years that we have been here some streamlining of that process, moving some things to online. So there aren't as many people waiting in the rooms as long. And so I have had now 4 kids go through getting driver's license over the last 8 years. And so I'm very familiar with the motor vehicle office and what that takes. And I will say I have seen significant improvements. So good job on that. Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. And so, what I would submit to you, Representative, is kind of our number one focus for how do we deliver. The answer is leadership. So it's creating a culture where we have leaders growing leaders. And when I came here, I would say that with Governor Hutchinson, we'd started to change the culture in state government, started moving it in a much more positive direction. That's my opinion.
Hmm.
Uh, but I still think we had an opportunity to really elevate it, take it to another level. And Secretary Walther was very open to that. He was very focused on solving problems, and so some of the things that were quote unquote broken, he was willing to actually help me and enable me and give me the resources to fix. I think he began within DF&A to change the mindset a little bit from a strategy of let's eliminate all costs no matter what,
Mm.
to let's think about return on investment as if it was my personal money, right? And there's a big difference, right? So I'll give a funny example. Let's say we had a log cabin and it was really, really cold and we needed a fire to get warm, right? If my goal was let's eliminate all costs no matter what, I would burn the furniture, right?
Right.
But if my goal was return on investment, what I would do is I would go purchase an axe for $10 and go chop some wood and burn that and save the furniture. And that way, when somebody needed to sit down to go to work or anything else, they would have the furniture that they need to do that. And while I give that example, and it's kind of a little bit funny, we actually had some situations like that where we had people where they did not have a chair to sit in because we were not replenishing the chairs. And then you'd say, well, geez, knucklehead, why don't you buy better chairs? Well, to comply with the laws on chair buying, there's only certain limitations. And if you said, why are you making it so complicated, you dumb bureaucrat? The answer is, well, the voters would like it this way, right? Because if you were to go ask all your constituents, did any of you trust that elite, faceless bureaucrat Charlie Collins to buy a chair, or are you worried he's going to buy thrones for everybody, right? Your voters would very likely say, Representative, put some constraints on him because
Yeah.
we don't want him buying thrones, right? So
Yeah.
there are laws on the book to ensure that I buy chairs that will be destroyed within a limited period of time. So if I have 2,000 people and I'm not allowed to buy a chair by law that will last more than 10 years, you can do the math on that and say, I need a 200 chair per year budget in order to keep everybody in a chair to do their job. And
Yes.
while that seems pretty straightforward, the chair budget here for years and years was only 50. And we had entry level people that had a choice of sitting on the floor or buying their own chair.
That's just crazy. But that totally explains bureaucracy, right? That's how it works when you lay down mandates that don't have those parameters around it, or as some say, begin with the end in mind. What are we actually trying to achieve? So I appreciate you kind of looking at the big picture and not just what's in front of me today. So
And
let's. Oh,
this is where and I know you're ready to
yeah,
move to that, where I
yeah.
just would really tip my hat, both to Secretary Walther, but also to Governor Sanders and Secretary Hudson, because they're very much bringing a new wisdom and a new focus. And let's think about return on investment. Let's think about efficiency and effectiveness. Let's take it to the next level. They're hungry for the new ideas and the innovation, and they're willing to go to the legislature and explain, hey, I know this makes sense at one level, but here
Hmm.
are the unintended consequences. And here's why if we invest some money over here, we're going to get a payoff that's 10 times better. So we have really, under Governor Sanders and Secretary Hudson, really accelerated the innovations that Governor Hutchinson and Secretary Walther had begun.
You're right, and it is doing it the way we've always done it is not the answer anymore. And that is great. It's great to see that leadership. We feel it in the legislature as well. So let's move on because I'm excited to talk to you about technology and AI. And I know you just came and spoke to the Republican caucus about some technology and AI advancements and where we think things are going. And so I'd like to just ask a couple of really broad questions, and then I'm going to kind of let you go. But AI is changing. It's changing every day. And I know my first question is, how are we currently using AI within DF&A to improve either management, revenue management, tax collection? Like, how are you utilizing it right now? And then wait, before you answer, I'm going to ask you, where do we see it going?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, and I hope it's not too frustrating, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I've learned in life is what I'm going to call the shiny objects that grab our attention in a given moment,
Yeah.
right? Okay, unless we're prepared to operate with them, right, are not going to be nearly as useful and productive as we think they are. For example, if there's a new pair of pliers or a new screwdriver, but you're not a carpenter, it doesn't matter how advanced that screwdriver or pliers are, you're not going to be able to fix or build much, right? So step number one is leaders building leaders. And one of the things that we did in DFA is we created something called DFA University. And a lot of my managers, my leaders, are the people that are mentoring, teaching, training, and sometimes we're teaching and training hard skills like public speaking and analytical thinking and project management, right? Which are all brand new skills to the bureaucracy. They don't
Mm-hmm.
exist in the bureaucracy, right? So we're building those skills. And we're also building the skills of being able to interact with people and to work together in new and different ways. And I'll tell you what the biggest one of those, and it's called collaboration. It's very easy when people are complaining or bringing you issues to say, here's my inbox and here's my outbox. And if it happened before my inbox or it happens after my outbox, you need to get to somebody else to complain about that.
Yes.
Much better to teach and train and develop people whose mindset says, where is the beginning and where is the end? And how are we going to get from the beginning to this much better place? And then where does my part fit inside of it, right? And so this
Mm-hmm.
is true with all innovations, including these technical innovations. So the first good news is we are better prepared today in DF&A from an analytical thinking, project management, and technology oriented perspective to be able to take on new, better technology than we've ever been before. That's kind of point number one.
Yeah.
Point number two is everything works with a purpose in mind, right? So we've got to have, kind of a point, right? And so let me give you one example of the kind of project which involved many of these different things in which I see AI becoming a capstone to, and then we'll go a little bit more toward things we may be looking at in the future.
Okay.
So one of the things that I noticed when we first got here is this inbox to outbox thinking left for things to be quite disparate. And when things are disparate, they're not integrated. And that means you have lots of opportunity for error. You have lots of opportunity for inefficiency, and you have lots of opportunity for security breaches. So I'll give you an example of a big one that I noticed when I first got here. Managing paper returns, tax returns, not just income tax returns, but business tax returns and W-2 filings and sales tax returns and things most individuals don't do. The number of pieces of paper is just, unbelievably large. And so one of the things that DFA had done in order to be able to say we're going to have fewer workers is to outsource the processing of a portion of that paper return work. So that meant that people's tax returns were boxed up in cardboard boxes, put on trucks, and driven across the state so that private sector employees could do the keying and scanning, and paper was moving back and forth. And so you created all of this extra logistics, which opened the door to security breaches, took the responsibility from one place to another, and it really just created a less efficient overall approach. So one of the things that we did early on, 3, 4, 5 years ago, was not renew that contract. Now, these entry-level types of jobs to do this type of work, especially during the time of COVID, were going up in price at a very high rate. So this was a $2.5 million contract headed toward $5 million a year. So with that savings, what we did was not only use it to hire internally a lower number of people to do the work as part of an integration into the other half, which we were already doing in-house, but also and critically to upgrade the technology so that the scanning equipment and the OCR reading equipment could be much more effective, quick, fast, and accurate compared to what we had before. The next thing we did was inside DF&A, there are different steps to this process. And so there were different organizations running different parts, running on different timelines. So you'd have Group A sitting around waiting for Group B to do something, but Group B reported to somebody else. So they were going to get around to it when Group B thought it was important, which who knew when that was going to be. So we fully integrated all of those resources into one operating group. And I've got one manager that is responsible for it. And she is very focused on continuous improvement, both in the processing, in the manual elements of it, as well as the technology elements. So today we're beginning to do much more automation, and that is creating more time to respond to things faster and opening the door for something like AI to help us with analytics to be able to do a higher level and quality in this area than we've ever done before.
That's great. And so looking at state leaders and specifically policymakers, is there anything that we should be doing to prepare for these AI-driven changes that are coming?
I think the governor's task force, the group that came and talked that you mentioned earlier, is designed to start to put some parameters out there, because whenever you have something as powerful as this new technology, where we can't even look at it today and say it's ABC, so now we know what we're dealing with, but it's going to be changing very, very fast, that she's very wise to have this group lay out and set up some parameters in conjunction with the legislature. As you know, there are legislators that are in this working group. And so the idea would be that both the executive branch and the legislature would be aligned in terms of how we're going to govern this thing, right? So that would be point number one. Then I think point number two is we should get aligned together about where we're going to use it to help us get better solutions. So I think, as you recall, a couple of days ago when I was sharing with the group, we do a lot of things where we interact with people. The first hardest thing that we have not been able to solve yet, that I am hopeful AI can help us solve, is an answer to the age-old question. If I am a person in Arkansas and I'm really not sure who I need to talk to, is it sales tax? Is it the IRS? Is it Social Security? Is it income tax at the state level? Is it the county assessor? And these could be any of 400 different political entities in Arkansas, cities, counties, state, to 20, 30, or 50 different tax types inside DF&A. How do I get the right phone number? So on our website, we've got an opportunity for somebody to come engage with us. And I think the very first opportunity is for AI to help us make it so that it's one call for the Arkansan. And that's a very thing. But then you can say, if we take that concept of being an agent, you can go, to greater and greater and greater service. And that would be one area that we can move forward together on. The last piece of this that I would say is after we decide what we want to do together, then we're going to need to be open to what are the procurements, what is that return on investment, so that we get comfortable that in order to make this stuff give us the benefits, we are going to have to invest in it, but we need to be doggone sure that we're going to get the efficiency, the effectiveness, and the higher quality services that the money is designed to present.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time. I think that we are going to see tremendous changes, kind of leapfrogging as we go over the next few years. And it sounds like DFA and this task force are really looking ahead to make sure that we are prepared to take full advantage of those changes. I'm going to have to let you go, but I'm going to ask you real quick, maybe 2 sentences, something. I know you talked about you're protecting the kids and those most vulnerable is one of your biggest accomplishments during your time as a legislator. Is there anything else during your time of public service that you're most proud of or something that you hope to accomplish? Just real quick.
I think the most exciting day I had was when we passed the first income tax rate reduction in the history of Arkansas in 2013, a 100-year anniversary of the constitutional amendment making the income tax legal in America.
Well, that is a great accomplishment, and I thank you for doing that. So, as an Arkansan, I appreciate the constant tax decreases. Charlie, I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate you just taking time out of your busy day to meet with me and to kind of talk through all the things that you've done. You have an amazing resume, so I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, and I wish you all all continued success, Representative. You take care now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Commissioner Charlie Collins. He is such an impressive career path. He started out in the Naval Academy, went on to serve as a Naval Intelligence Officer aboard an aircraft carrier. We could probably do a whole show on just his experiences that he had there. Once he left the Navy and he began his career in the private sector, he became a brand manager with one of the top marketing companies in the world, Procter Gamble. It really is the pinnacle of brand marketing. And that's ended up being what brought him to our great state of Arkansas. He worked on the Wal-Mart and the Sam's Club teams for Procter & Gamble. And then, as you know, when you come and visit Bentonville, people just fall in love with Bentonville and with Arkansas and all that it has to offer, and they tend to stay here, and that's exactly what Commissioner Collins did. And he stayed in Arkansas, and we are so grateful that he did. He went on to become a state representative and then went on to work in the administration, and he's currently working as a commissioner in the Department of Financial Administration. He serves as deputy director there as well, and we got to hear a lot how his department affects everyday Arkansans. I mean, he is the guy responsible ultimately for what's going on with motor vehicles and with our taxes, and he is a tremendous resource. And we got to take a little glimpse into the future. I think we will continue to see these processes streamlined. Commissioner Collins, along with the AI task force, have a great handle on where things are going and how we can take full advantage of that and make lives easier and simpler for Arkansans so that we can spend less time in the motor vehicle office and more time doing what we love to do. So I am grateful to have leaders like Commissioner Collins here sharing what he does. So I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Please like or share and subscribe to the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you next week in the arena.